Welcome back to the Open Air Studio. This is Mitch Thrower. We are here today with an amazing triathlete, a good friend. We're here with Jessi Stensland. Jessi, welcome to the show. Good to have you here. We're going to go and look, I think, at your early days. And I know that you have an incredible triathlon resume, but let's start when you were a little kid. What sports were you involved in?
Oh, from the get-go, my parents put us in everything. And somehow, by the age of 5 or 6, my sister was for sure a dancer, and I was for sure a swimmer. But I did do a little dance, did do a little gymnastics. Swimming was at the heart of everything from age 6, though. By age 8, I was year-round as a swimmer. I did pick up, I think I played softball. I even did some cheerleading. I've never told anyone that.
You are a cheerleader. Jessi Stensland, triathlete, cheerleader. That's outstanding.
Catholic grammar school. I don't know how it worked, but, you know. Tennis in high school was a big, fun thing for me, so I love that. Haven't played much since, but I still love it. Want to pick it up again. And, you know, we skied and played, you know, tackle volleyball and stuff like that on the court, but that's about it.
But your core sport was swimming growing up. Always
never
swimming.
Never ran, never rode a bike.
So your high school swimming practice days, what would your hard days look like? Like, would you get up early? What would happen? What would that look like?
Up through high school, but obviously before college, I didn't have one of those coaches that pounded us with yardage. We actually just had the one workout a day until towards the end of my high school. I think it was junior, senior year when we had a morning workout, so a 5 to 6:30 or 7 workout, and then an afternoon or evening workout from 7 to 9. And you know, we'd put in those 10,000 meters in the day, and luckily we only had to do that a couple times a week, unlike some of my friends were doing multiple days of that every day.
Much more. And that almost seems easy compared to some of your triathlon days, I'm sure, at this point.
These days, yeah, except for the fact that, you know, we love our 3 sports, so when we're done with one, we always get to switch it up versus spending all those 4 hours in one sport. Not as much fun.
Do you remember when you first heard the word triathlon? Like when you first heard that there was something called a triathlon?
I remember what my first memories are. I don't remember the word per se, but the 2 influences were of a neighborhood friend, family friend, mentioned these crazy races out in Pennsylvania where I don't even remember if he said swim, bike, run, but it was just, you know, he saw us as endurance athletes and as swimmers, and he just wanted us, whether it be that it was kayaking, biking, and running, something where you did multi-sports. But I didn't give him much attention because he was kind of crazy. Just, you know, he's one of those dads that just wants to be in everything, and didn't think about it again for a few years through college when I saw it on TV.
You saw it on TV in college. Mm-hmm. You saw Ironman. You saw the Ironman Hawaii show on television, and what did you think? Did you think you'd ever be doing the sport of triathlon when you were watching it in college? Was it appealing to you at that point?
I'll be 100% honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is my story. Well, I'm always honest. What am I saying? I remember watching it, and at 21 in swimming, you know, you are old. Your career, unless you're going to go to the Olympics or do something else, is pretty much over, and there are very few people nowadays, luckily with swimming, you can swim a lot longer. But then, you know, going back a few years, and I remember seeing them, and they were older than me. They were about 10 years older, you know, and to see someone who's in 30 years old doing that, I really looked at them, I said, if they can do that, I can do it. Now, of course, I know that 30 is not old anymore, but to me at 21, you know, they looked like they were a bit older, and, you know, my mom wasn't much older than that. So it just inspired me to say there's something beyond what I'm doing right now, I'm sure. I didn't put it in those words right away, but I just remember finishing my college swimming career knowing that I hadn't reached my potential, and I couldn't have answered why until years in my triathlon career when I did.
When did you actually do your first race?
I did my first race in the spring, summer of 97.
1997. Do you remember the experience? Where were you?
Festival Triathlon in Hamilton, New Jersey, which isn't around anymore. It was this summer before my senior year of college, and the whole purpose was that I heard about this thing called triathlon, and I just wanted to try it out that summer because to be inspired beyond my swimming.
How did you do? How did you do in the race?
I won the first timers division, I think.
Okay.
Although my friend said, you're going to win, and I said, what do you mean? I hadn't ridden a bike or really ran, but my fitness level, quickly you realize that gets you far. But I remember, this is what I remember swimming really easily. I remember being on the bike, having people come by and practically whack me on the behind saying, nice swim, as they flew by me on the bike as I'm shifting my gears down on the
in the lower part, the 10-speed bike.
And I had borrowed a bike from that same crazy
friend,
dad that I knew, his bike, and then I remember the run, I felt really strong, and I was actually going by people again on the run. So overall,
but your first triathlon, you won. You actually won. Well, the first timers division, which really should be, there should be more first timers divisions in races. Like people don't realize what a wonderful thing it is to do and complete your first triathlon.
It is, and it does. Yeah, no matter where you've come from, what athletic ability or fitness level, you know, it's an amazing experience, that very first triathlon, just to do it.
And who inspires you? I'd ask, like, what's an inspirational character? You've been involved since 1997. What is an inspirational character in triathlon? Someone who's sort of pointed you in the right direction, or inspired you, or motivated you?
There's been so many. You know, Mitch, I lived out here since, and thanks to you, and going back to my very first beginnings of sports, the multisports.com camp that I had come out to, and I was immediately around the top people in the sport.
That's where we met, at the multisport camp.
That's where we met.
Right.
I came out here, that was the spring of '98, so not 1 year later, so from my first triathlon. And so from the beginning, and that was, you know, everyone from Paul Newby Fraser to Heather Furr to Mike Pigg back in the day, to yourself. And
I seem to remember some crazy Mike Pigg dancing routines he would do at the
I won't tell you what he was
at
wearing.
the multi-sport camps. Yeah,
Either.
I wonder if there's video or footage of that anywhere.
I have lots of pictures that you could flip through and make a movie.
Oh, that's crazy. So you've had exposure to really good athletes right from the get-go, and it's funny because the sport of triathlon coming to San Diego really kind of took you under its wing. You know, you became very good friends with, you know, John Duke, Dave Alberga from Active, John Duke from Triathlete and, you know, competitor group, Bob Babbitt. You know, basically you kind of networked your way in. And spend a minute for the people that are out there. You know, you're obviously, you know, blessed with incredibly, you know, wonderful looks. You've been in several advertisements, right? I mean, you've been on the cover of Triathlete magazine. I know we have some images to show the viewers of you in the various ads. This is the Under Armour advertisement. This is the Kinesis advertisements you were in. Another one from Maxxis Tires. Really phenomenal stuff. But you actually commercialized. I mean, you say that at 21 you were that's kind of the end of the road for a swimmer. Mm-hmm. And you know, for many models at 21, their careers are over at 25, etc. What are some tips for people out there that are, you know, interested in making triathlon kind of their career?
I get this question a lot, and it's great, you know, and more lately, actually. And there's definite business behind the whole thing, and it's one thing to be an athlete who's just going to win, and that's who sponsors are going to see because they're winning. But there's my whole inspiration has always been, you know, being at the top, which I pretty much always had been from the get-go. It's just you're able to be such an inspiration, and you're getting these resources, for example, from all over that you're learning, that you just continue, and I continue to want to pass on. And lucky for me, I had worked for Elite Racing, which is now part of the competitor group.
That's
at
right.
the time.
That's right.
All the rock and roll marathons, and just seeing those sponsorship contracts that linked this event with a sponsor who wanted to sponsor the event to reach the audience that were all those runners. I saw myself just as that event. Meaning, you know, I have these sponsors who want to reach an audience, and I'm there in the middle. And that sponsorship contract has a lot of things you have to fulfill on it. You know, in races, it's how many banners do you have on the course, or how many logos of your company go out to the people in the brochures or whatever. And so I took it upon myself to do things like print my own promotional brochures.
Right, I remember the card, the Jessi card, and the website. And
it's saying to get those logos out and to see that you're a team and you believe, certainly at the core of everything that I've done, I've always been friends with and believed in the things that I've had to talk about. And I learned that early on when I just couldn't stop talking about things that I loved. And it was really hard to talk about the other things, and that wasn't for me. So luckily, I had some good background in sports marketing and management.
Sports marketing and management. Who are some other sponsors that sort of came along the way? I think Active?
Oh, of course, Active.com. It's been part of my family ever since then. Specialized Bikes and B&L Bike Shop here in San Diego. I mean, to never have had a mechanical failure on a course because of the great bike shop. So to be friends with those guys, and just, it's a lot about being just yourself, you know, and being friends with all these companies, because, you know, in triathlon we are a tight-knit community in endurance. And
very tight, and it's a close family. The sport of triathlon is a close family, and it's, you know, being yourself and getting out there and meeting them. People have, you know, watched your career and seen you racing, and I know you've taken a little bit of time off. We'll talk about that in a minute, but what is your race resume? Take us through kind of a few of the races that you've won, maybe some of the ones you've enjoyed winning.
Yeah.
Like, what were some memorable moments of crossing the line first or second or fifth or whatever, whatever it was? So maybe a few top finishes.
There's a few that stand out. Probably the earliest one, of course, would be that first full season as an amateur that I raced in '99. I went to the World Championships in Montreal in '99, and I was still such a raw athlete then. It was amazing, and just did the race kind of with your blinders on. You just go. And I'll never forget, though, how I felt coming down the chute. It was about a 2-mile long stretch along a rowing canal. That's where the run was. So you could run straight for 10 minutes to the finish line, and being around. I actually have a great memory of this because Sam McGlone and I, now that she is the phenomenal athlete that she is, of course, and always had been, we're running down that together and ended up getting the silver medal at World Championships, and just having that experience with all ages of people at that sport was amazing to me. Now, you know, I wasn't just with 20-year-olds, I was with 70-year-olds, and they were on my team. Yep. So along with the silver medal and just the performance that I had, which I still consider one of my greatest performances, even though it was pretty much, you know, just without thinking kind of performance, it still is my favorite.
Favorite moment?
Yeah, then...
You won a couple of races?
Well, I won, you know, around here, of course, San Diego International, Carlsbad Triathlon, a second at St. Anthony's out in Florida was a great year. You know, I did do one half Ironman. Actually, I've done two. My first was half Ironman Mexico.
Ironman Mexico. When was this?
That was in 2004.
2004, okay.
And I won that one.
And you won
it was before
that.
It was a 70.3. It was a great week, a great experience, and I should have just stopped there. I did the 70.3 and here in Oceanside after that didn't feel as easy not winning.
The water's a little different in
And the water's a little
than
different.
Mexico, right?
Yeah. And I have to say the Olympic trials, of course. I mean, I've been in this sport, when I got into the sport, it was always about, to me, what the Olympics means is kind of encapsulates just a whole lot of things in life for me, and just that epitome of performance, and it always drove me to be my best. So getting along that journey and making it to Olympic trials in 2004, and although I didn't make the team, I absolutely had the most, I would say, my best experiences my best performances in my entire life. So that, to me, I consider as my gold medal. It lifted me up to be the best that I could be, and that's what the Olympic trials was.
And you took a bit of a, let's call it a sabbatical, right? You were so focused, and you know, you'd been looking at that black lane at the bottom of the swimming pool since you were 6 years old. And what year was it you just decided? You just said, I'm going to take some time off.
Yeah.
And you said you're taking some time. I know you're coming back now. You're making a big comeback. But what was it that sort of snapped the I'm going to take some time off nerve?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a really neat story, and it's how I've been always able to kind of live my life, really listening to my gut and being really aware. So there was a day, it was in February of 2006, and the coolest thing about what really happened in that moment is something that I've just been able to always kind of live by, which is to truly just listen to my gut. And it really has had nothing to do with what the outside world might think of what I do. I've never been a fan of expectations, or, you know, when I make a decision, if someone doesn't understand it, which is what happened that day, I'm still driven by what's inside. And so that day, it really wasn't even a decision to stop triathlon. It was just a decision to follow what I felt inside and what I was feeling and being told. Essentially, I was not hearing a voice, but it just said, you're not getting up tomorrow. And I kind of sat there like, all right, I'm not getting up tomorrow. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what I was supposed to do in place of that. And of course, we triathletes know there's always something to do. For the first time in nearly that 30 years, I had nothing to do, not even to put my foot on the pedal, nowhere to drive at that exact moment. Because I was leaving a track workout, you'd have to go home and stretch, nutrition, all these things. And I was like, it's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night. I don't know, what do I have to do? And so
it must have been a relief of sorts. You must have felt sort of relief, but also fear, or I mean, what happened?
It was a lot of, to be honest, it was a lot of nothing. And I knew, I was just true enough that I knew that I would look back and know why. Whatever was going to come would tell me why I had to then essentially take that break, and that's what happened. I have a friend of mine who had LASIK surgery not a month or so later, and she was explaining to me what the world looked like to her, colorful and all these new things she was seeing, and I said, Jessi was also her name, that's exactly what it looks like to me. And not that my world wasn't colorful before, but oh my gosh, when I was just seeing and doing so many different things. It's when I got into film, I found myself on different sets, one of which was, we picked a location like a skydiving location, and the next day I skydived, because when typically...
Right, so you snapped out of the world for a while of triathlon, and you started doing production and on-camera work and getting involved in learning all different parts of life.
It was a part of it. You know, the one thing I did say, I said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I know, here's two things I know I'm bad at. Relaxing and just relationships, as in sit and have a coffee just to sit and have a coffee and talk about stuff versus being en route to somewhere else.
Right.
And so I said, I know that how important relaxing is and that stress level and being able to do nothing when you're supposed to do nothing. Same thing in training or in life. And if it takes me 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years, it's going to help me the next 70 years of my life if I can learn that to whatever comes. And so I just did that. I chilled out and
That's amazing.
was able to do that. I still had some appearances. I still let things kind of roll with what my sponsorships were doing and being kind of out there.
You were still promoting products.
But I wasn't being proactive, and I was just kind of sitting back.
What snapped you back into the sport? So you snapped out of the sport,
Yeah.
took 2 years off, and then suddenly something said to you, you're going to do triathlon again.
Well, it was funny. Really all it was I just wanted to start working out or just doing something. I didn't do the triathlon not workout. I was not doing anything. I mean, so this was like I just wanted to go to the gym and just start moving. I'm literally moving. I mean, it was amazing how inefficient my body was at that point. And as soon as I did that, you know, the way I've learned to train is so efficient. Speaking of the core performance program, which is of course a big thing I work with. But let's just say, knowing if I'm going to go to the gym, I know how to train, and I know when you do it so purposefully, you do it in a shorter amount of time than if you even don't train right. And if I'm going to train, I'm going to train right. And I'm still only 31 at the time. I'm in my prime. If I train right, I'm going to be that
top of the game.
Fast again.
Right.
I knew that much. And from there, although I didn't get fit right away, certainly I wasn't hardcore, I just still let things flow as they wanted to. That's when still Under Armour kind of came in the picture and a couple other opportunities where I still realized I hadn't been so removed from the world as I felt. And there was a place for me to build back up and still kind of work with, as I am now, a bunch of different people on a kind of a different level than that precision triathlon and more of an endurance-based inspiration.
What are your tips for endurance athletes, sort of triathletes that are out there? Maybe 3 tips for triathlete age groupers or triathlete pros from the very interesting core performance and functional training that you've been involved with for a while now. What are some sort of things that they should be thinking about? Because you've got a very unique, probably unique diet plan, a unique fitness plan, workout plan, schedule, thought process. What are some tips?
So if we're talking physical and the body, you know, at the very core of what I learned about performance is our own machine, right? So a lot of times we know more about our bicycles and whether the tires are pumped or whether the brakes are rubbing than we pay attention to or even know about our own body and things a little bit tight or dealing with that. So really my whole focus has been on creating a body, and I just really encourage people to get to know their body in the way of balance, symmetry, of course, we've heard all these things, but to really take it to heart and pay attention and to implement things to give you that awareness. What's really made a difference for me since towards the later part of my career is this idea of functional training and core performance program, which was a big influence on my life. At the center of that is really the body and the machine that we're using to get from our start line to the finish line. And so many things are involved in that working together. I know you mentioned nutrition. Of course it matters what we put in our body. And of course it matters how much sleep we got that night. And we think about our cardio capacity a lot. But a lot of times we don't think about our posture, our symmetry.
You have wonderful posture. I was like,
I hope
just
to
sit up.
Antisocial, but you know what? The point is, like, I was sitting and teaching a triathlon kind of endurance clinic the other day with some newbies, and we had a lot of seats set out like that. This is just an example. And everyone, whether it be in the beginning of the meeting or towards the end, was sitting like this or like this. And the whole idea is, especially as, you know, any triathlon, let alone when Ironmans become so important, and you see, you know, you want to run to the end of that finish line with the ability to keep this maintained strong and to make it as practical as that. If within 5 minutes in a meeting you can't sit with your back straight, how are you going to get from the start to the finish line of a 5K, a 10K, or a marathon? Right. So at the center of all of this is truly, and we talk about the core, and I don't like to overuse that word because it's a lot more than that, the idea of this shoulder stability down to our hip stability, and to get most of our power through this is where you should be getting most of your power. as the muscles get further away from your center, they are less powerful. So if you think you're actually swimming just with your arms and biking just with your quads and your hamstrings, really going to have to shift that, because you're probably not utilizing so much of, like we talked about, the glutes are so much closer to our center and they are so much more powerful. And things like that we're going to be thinking of in the swim and the bike and the run.
So the machine, you really want to focus on the fact that, you know, your body, like your bike, is a machine.
It's a machine, it's got parts, it needs to be tended to, it needs to be all those things. And like I said, at the center is your posture, and there's ways to do that. You know, it's the balance. We've balance and symmetry, and whether you're in a strength routine, but incorporating all that. It's not just about strength. We want to move through that strength and then have power through that strength. And you're only going to have as much strength as you can have through your hip if you've got the balance where you can connect your ankle, knee, and hip, where you can stand on one leg and move through that leg.
Jessi, you've been one of the more electronic, digitally savvy athletes, and that's probably helped quite a bit with your sponsors, because you do have, you know, a website. What is the website? It's GoJessi.com. And you do some other things. What else do you do online?
Yeah, it's been really fun to be online in these new things like Facebook, of course, and Twitter. For those of you who don't know Twitter, twitter.com. Out there as well, and it's just really fun. I think, yeah, it helps with sponsors, as you mentioned. I mean, you're getting out there, but at the same time, what really drives the sponsors these days is authenticity, and just that idea of being transparent. We're all just people. We all have the same kind of goals. We all have the same questions, and it's just really great to be able to interact so somewhat intimately, you know, and with people in that medium. So Facebook and Twitter, and I recommend that if you haven't stopped by, I try to keep up my blogs on GoJessi.com. And
excellent. If people want to follow you on Twitter, what is your Twitter address?
Twitter is just Jessi Stensland, all one word. Twitter.com/Jessi Stensland.
JessiStensland.com. Yeah. So we can follow you online.
Yeah, please do. My #1 piece of advice to people when they are starting the sport, or whether they have been experienced and have yet to do something like this, is to get your body from head to toe analyzed, evaluated as far as your symmetry and your body awareness and your ability to balance or not. It takes a simple, there are professionals out there who do it, whether they be in performance or there's popping up postural centers all over the place. Just highly recommend it. A lot of times we don't even know that when we go down to touch our toes, we jet off to one side, or that we can't stand on one foot or do it in the way that's efficient, one shoulder's up or one shoulder's down. And the key is that beyond that evaluation, seeking someone out who can do that to you and point that out, is the idea that you can change. Know that you can change your body. Simply, unless you have a bony deformity, a lot of times, which is just something you can't do about, we just have bones sitting in soft tissue, and we have control over that if we just start using them in the ways that we need to use them. A lot of people have said to me, you know, I just thought that's just how I was. The one foot just always went out to the side, and the one foot was always straight. So that's how I do my squats, that's how I run, and thinking that that's always how it was. Guarantee you, and I've changed it a lot, my feet and my legs have been out like this, and I've got them to be straight with some simple corrective exercises, and just to take that time is huge.
Really focusing on that specific knowledge that you can change your body.
You can change your body, yeah. And the idea being is this is less about, you know, there's two elements to doing something like this. It's for your best performance ever, but it's also about, and #1, it's about injury prevention, because you'll never get to the start line without being 100% you, or certainly with that insurance. And these days, you know, in our sport, to be able to do some set exercises that are not only going to keep you injury free, but also give you the best performances, which, by the way, makes things a lot more fun when the movements are just easier because your body is better. But also, we're having to sign up for races, as popular as our sport's gotten so far in advance, and certainly the Ironman, that to do that a year out and not, I consider this insurance and something you can't do without, to make sure that you're going to get to the start line of those races you've committed to. So,
and
really
as injury-free as possible. You know, many triathletes train through injuries, don't focus on healing. It's really, really important.
Exactly.
So now, let's have you reach through the camera and actually tell your family. You have a sister and a brother and your parents, and what would you tell them, because they've been very supportive of you as a triathlete and your career as a triathlete. What message would you give to them of thanks or letting them know why you chose a course in the sport of triathlon.
My family has been, of course, an amazing supporter and inspiration to why I'm even here today. My mom, my dad, Brenda and Keith, and my sister and brother Kelly and Brett, we're all really close, always have been. We've always been the type to, we don't live near each other because we followed our dreams. My sister, being a dancer, was in New York City. My brother, a rock climber and just a mountain guy, has been out in Boulder, and I'm out here in California. You know, my parents gave me, my senior year of college, the gift to come out to the multisports.com camp. That was my birthday present in 1997.
That's interesting. You received a multi-sport camp participation as a birthday gift. That's great.
I had looked into it, and it was a big deal at the time. I mean, it cost, you know, a lot more now, I'm sure, but at the time it was a lot for me, who didn't have that money as a college student. My
Worth
parents,
it having been to the multi-sport camp, you know,
well worth
4 or
it.
5 times.
The card simply said, it was a little girl on the front of the card. She had aviator glasses on, a little kind of baby, and inside my mom just wrote in her own script, California or bust.
Oh, that's great. That's really great.
And it kind of still brings tears to my eyes sometimes, but you know, my mom had the hardest time with me leaving, of course. You know, I left home and came out here to follow this dream, and yet I found that card years later and I said, oh my gosh, you know, they gave this to me, and if it wasn't for that, I'd never have known what San Diego was like and all of that stuff. So as hard as it was for them, that's just in their nature, and they've given me that nature as well, and I fully believe that for the life that I've been able to lead and kind of the risks that I've taken, you know, I've never had a stable income, and just to be able to follow the passion and the gut instinct like you heard on that day in February, simply because I always knew I had a place to go.
Supporters.
If everything went wrong. So it always does that, but 30 years later, you know, they really did that for me, and I just believe that that couldn't be any more important for people out there who also have kids or just friends, to be that kind of support, that if all else goes wrong and you do that, truly following your passion, that they're there for you. So that's what they did for me, and I want to thank you guys 100%.
Well,
Yeah.
Jessi, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
You know, the sport of triathlon really does admire and follow the career of Jessi Stensland, and we're looking forward to seeing you out there this year in some races. So thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Mitch.